Hi, friends. Welcome back to another interview. This time I will be spotlighting the film National Anthem. The film is directed by Luke Gilford. This is his first feature film. He's known for his work on music videos and also from a photo book titled National Anthem, America's Queer Rodeo, which served as influence for this film. The film stars Charlie Plummer and Lindley, and as I mentioned, is the debut feature for Gilford. So in the interview room today, you will be meeting Luke Gilford, the director of the film, and Eve Lindley, who will talk about the film and sort of that collaboration of creating a really beautiful story. So just to kind of give you a brief summary of the film revolves around Dylan, who's played beautifully by Charlie Plummer. Dylan is a soft-spoken 21-year-old construction worker who unfortunately, or by the turns of events, becomes the father figure in his family. So he takes odd jobs to make ends meet so that he can take care of his younger brother and also help her, his recovering alcoholic mother, to kind of make a life for their family again. So his life is sort of restricted because of the fact that he needs to be home and make sure that his younger brother Cassidy is looked after and that the essentials are also being looked after. But by turns of events, he gets a job at a ranch, which is the home of a queer group of folk who are also rodeo stars. From there, the story just unfolds in a really beautiful way in that Dylan can sort of open his eyes and his mind to what is potentially his true identity. The queer rodeo presents an environment where he can sort of try new things and experience new things. And that part of the film is just so beautifully told in a way that I think will resonate with a lot of you, whether you identify as queers or not. There are a lot of universal themes in this film. But to read more about the film and my thoughts on the film, you'll have to go to my website, HyeMusings.ca, and I will link this in the description of this video. But in the meantime, I will leave you with my interview with director Luke Gilford and Eve Lindley. Hi, friends. Welcome to the virtual room again. I'm sitting with filmmaker Luke Gilford and the star of a National Anthem, Eve Lindley. One of the co-stars, I should say. So nice to virtually meet you both.
Nice to meet
Likewise.
you too.
So I know our time is limited, so maybe we can jump into speaking about the film. I will do a synopsis of the film for folks that are going to watch the interview so they know what we're talking about with no spoilers. But Luke, this is your debut film, your debut feature film based on a photo book that you did about the National Queer Rodeo. How much of that, the work in the photo book kind of influenced the screenplay that you were working with and your colleagues?
Well, the book is about a real subculture of the International Gay Rodeo Association, which is a group of real athletes performing in rodeos. There is some in Canada as well, and it's a safe space for anyone who wants to be there is welcomed as family. And it's a really necessary organization in rural places where there's not a lot of resources for queer people or trans folks. And so as I was traveling to make the book, I just saw that there was so much. I'm from Colorado. My father was in the Professional Rodeo Cowboys Association, so I love Western culture, and I really I felt a sense of belonging when I became part of this community. And so that's really what the film is about, is finding your people. And that's
Mhm.
so much what one feels when they're at these rodeos and in this world, is that sort of warm, welcoming feeling. And so that's really what I wanted to focus on for the film, and what sort of inspired the thesis of the film, which is about finding our people and uncovering ourselves, and also the way that this community sort of reclaims these symbols of patriotism
Yes.
in life is a big part of the film, and the way that they reinvent these symbols of the cowboy as as you know, a cowboy being for anyone, for women, trans people, queer people, people of color.
Hmm. Yeah, thank you for that. And if I was wondering, when you came across the script for the film, what was in that script that just took you and said, and you had to kind of be part of that?
I mean, there were like kind of phases to it for
Mm.
me. And like the first phase, I was like, I would love to learn how to ride horses. I would love to like acquire a skill with
Right.
like through a role.
Hmm.
And then, the second phase was sort of like a little bit of fear of the character, but also a deep like desire to be as free as her.
Right.
I think of her as like the most free person I've ever played, and she's free with her love and free with her body, and she's just so grounded and like has both feet on the ground and is not like trapped in her head at all. And like
Mhm.
that was one of the more one of the more seductive things about her to me. And something that I've taken with me once we wrapped filming,
Yeah, I
hopefully.
would say that definitely resonated with me. I was watching this with my bestie, and we were both like, this is such not just the space itself that the film depicts, but also the energy that kind of radiates from the characters. For both of you, I think I kind of want to know what the dialogue was in terms of, the characters, Luke, and once you had Eve cast as Sky, what was that preparation like, and how much room there was to kind of improvise or bring in certain personal traits into the roles.
I really love naturalism. To me, a sense of authenticity is so important. I really kind of shut down when I'm watching films that feel contrived or like stilted in that way. And so and because this is a real world and I've lived on queer communes before, it was just so important for people to watch us and feel the realism of it. And I think that a big part of that is energetically with the characters. So we spent a lot of time together just building trust and intimacy with the cast and myself, as well as between each other, so that we wanted it when they were walking on set for it to feel very organic. And
Mhm.
yes, there was a script, and yes, there was lines and beats that we were needing to hit, but I always wanted to give everyone space to bring in, you know, whatever else was on their mind or whatever felt right, whatever felt natural. So some of those moments became some of the greatest moments in the film. I mean, Eve has this amazing improv line about, well, the line was written in the drag scene in Walmart, where
Mhm.
they're talking about, there's either eye people or lip people, and her line about, but Dolly Parton is both, was improvised and brilliant, and that made it in. And Mason Alexander Park brought in some great improv moments, like the windy day. The wind was like 50 miles an hour that day, and we actually had to shut down the shoot right after that scene
Oh,
because it was
wow.
dangerous. But they said this wind is so transphobic, and that was definitely not written. So there was great moments that we wanted to maintain. Also with the younger brother, a lot of his lines were improvised as well.
What about for you, Eve?
Yeah, I think that, I mean, it was always exciting to see like what, especially when you're working with such amazing actors like Charlie. I mean, he gives such an incredible performance and he's so
Hmm.
honest, and so it was always really fun to kind of improv with these types of actors who were so like, you know, so real. I think sometimes we think of improv as being like, like I did a Judd Apatow movie and there was a lot of improv in that, but it was like this was so different, it was so like grounded and dropped in, and it was sometimes hard for me, but when you work with such incredible talent, you have no choice but to kind of rise up. So
Mhm. No, I think it shows, and I don't say that lightly. As I mentioned, there's that sense that you almost want to be part of this group of people because you genuinely feel like they really see each other in that sense of you feel seen and a place where you belong. And I wanted to talk about the space, the House of Splendor, and kind of what it was like to what was this discussion for you, Luke, in terms of designing that space, and then for Eve, what it was like to work in that space.
Well, I lived on a queer commune in Tennessee, in the woods of Tennessee, called Sassafras, that was a big inspiration for just the design of it and the sort of atmosphere, the even the architecture of it. We had to find the right place to set it, and it was hard to find a place in New Mexico because a lot of houses in New Mexico are adobe,
Yes.
and the place that I lived was, all wood and glass. So it was really hard to find that house. But I'm so happy we did. But it was actually a general's home of all things. And so we had to completely gut it and redesign it and make it queer. So Kelly McGeehee was our production designer. I adore her. She's
Mhm.
brilliant. And she was just such a perfect partner to collaborate with, to make it feel authentic.
Mhm.
And yeah, it needed to be cozy in a place that sort of seduces the viewer to be there, and that feels warm and inviting, that seduces Dylan to want to spend more time there. It was also important for the landscape around it to be full of big sky, because
Mhm.
the his home that he grew up in is supposed to be very wooded and low ceilings and kind of closed in. And then when he gets to House of Splendor, it's supposed to feel like the whole world is opening up and there's endless
Mhm.
possibility.
Yeah, it's so
yeah,
great.
it was such a fun time. I mean, being on that ranch, all of us together, it's like there was always something that you didn't notice on the first day. Like you'd look up and you'd be like, oh my God, that painting is, of like a nude trans woman, or like, oh my God,
Mhm.
they put the photos of from Luke's book in the hallway, or, like photos of me and Pepe. And like
Mhm.
it was it felt like being a kid in a candy store. There was so much discovery every time.
That's so funny that you mentioned that because my bestie is a photographer, so that's one of the things that they gravitated to right away. And it's like, oh, did you see that photo on the wall of this and that? And, it was kind of nice to be able to talk about some of the things they noticed and I noticed and or that I missed, right? And kind of at the end of it, we were both like, oh, that was so good, right? Like that was kind of how we summarized the experience of watching the film together. So it's kind of nice to be able to watch a film about chosen family with chosen family, you
Mhm.
know?
Yeah.
And I kind of wanted to talk about that concept because I know it's a big theme in the film, and you mentioned, Luke, in terms of how that is something that maybe not everybody relates to, but a lot of us who are privileged enough to have that chosen family, it's sort of life-saving, and kind
Mhm.
of what that means to each of you personally.
I mean, I do think that the process of finding our people, as it's said in the film, is actually quite universal, and it's been really inspiring to see even straight cis folks
Mhm.
coming up at screenings and saying, I'm not queer, I'm not trans, but like I really related to this. I just moved to this new city and I'm in the process of trying to find my people in this new place, or I think, or just the experience of first love and the way that it opens up your heart. and mind. So I do think that it's been inspiring to see folks who aren't necessarily part of the community really relate to that. But yes, I do think that for queer and trans folks, chosen family is often life-saving for them to create these safe spaces. I've said this before, but it's true that queer and trans folks have existed since the dawn of time, and we will continue to exist even when they try to erase us. And these safe spaces are so vital for us to come together and protect each other and to feel safe and supported and um, connect to that life force, you know. But I will also say that I think something I haven't seen on film, at least before, really, is the exploration of the bridge back to our biological family. It's so often about finding your people and then just like moving on.
Yeah.
And I do, in my own experience, like mending that relationship and healing those wounds has been so important as well. So yeah, I think that that's something that I hope people will be inspired by, or, you know, take their chosen family and their biological family, or, you know, one or the other, whatever works.
Mhm. Eva, did you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, I think, this movie, even as somebody who was in it, I feel like this movie taught me a lot about chosen family, and like I always like craved it, but I was living in a big city and like, work, 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 and like it was, and I mean, I really like feel like I found my people when
Mhm.
after this movie I kind of moved across the country, and and like it just, it's I think that this movie has the power to teach people, about the importance of that, and that's exciting. It's an exciting thing to be a part of.
I think it is, and I'm getting my hands up here in terms of time, and I think it's a nice way to segue into our ending here. But I'm glad that you share that a lot of audiences are resonating with the messages in the film, and I absolutely echo the sentiments of connecting back with our biological families and our chosen families as well. Where the film is going to come out soon in Canada and the US. Are there, what's the handle for the film so I can also share it with folks and they can follow along on social media?
At National Anthem Film.
Excellent. Thank you, Luke and Eve. A pleasure to speak with you.
Yeah, thank you so much.
All right.
Pleasure. Thank you so much.
Take care.
You too.